วัสดีครับ
สวัสดีค่ะ
Welcome to NBT World's Fireside. I'm Benjamin Ruchopagan.
And I'm Warisa Nilanat Gomon. Every week we have a fireside chat exploring what's going on in Thailand, diving deep into our latest obsessions.
Now, the Thai government has announced a systematic nationwide effort to bring competitive gaming, better known as eSports, to schools nationwide. Now, rather than treating gaming as a distraction to be controlled outside the classroom, policymakers are now positioning it as a structured educational and developmental tool inside the school system itself. The announcement immediately stood out because Thailand, like many countries around the world really, has historically wrestled with their social anxieties around youth gaming addiction, internet cafe culture, and declining academic performance. And they see gaming as competing with academia. And for years, the dominant instinct has been to restrict gaming, to regulate it, to monitor it, or discourage it altogether. And now the state is doing the opposite.
At first glance, the policy sounds kind of contradictory because traditionally, governments have framed anti-drug campaigns and gaming crackdowns as part of the same broader effort to keep young people disciplined and focused. And yet, Thailand's latest youth initiative intentionally merges competitive gaming with one of the country's most recognizable anti-narcotics campaign. So instead of isolating youth culture from public institutions, they're actually attempting to absorb it all into one system.
I think it's important to go where youth culture is. I think it's important to understand it rather than to reject it altogether, because then there's no way to regulate it at all if you consider it all sort of forbidden, right? So the government is now doing this through the long-running program To Be Number One. Now, for over 2 decades, To Be Number One has been Thailand's highest profile youth anti-drug movement. Now, the same anti-drug network is becoming the organizational backbone for Thailand's school esports ecosystem. In this way, gaming is no longer like a vice where you're trying to protect children away, like trying to shield them away from this harmful social ill, but it's a valuable pastime to actually support. Gaming can be a way to direct youthful energy towards something productive rather than self-destructive. And I know that if I had kids, I would rather they be, addicted to gaming than addicted to drugs.
True. And in this episode, we're going to explore 3 things. So why the Thai government has changed its mind about gaming altogether, and the royal origins of To Be Number One. Also, what Thailand hopes to achieve through this whole new program.
That's right. So a major conceptual shift underlying the policy is the government's reframing of gaming. So before, like we said, video games are seen as distractions, activities that are associated with wasted time, addiction, academic decline. But now policymakers see it as a vehicle for building digital human capital. Officials argue that modern economies increasingly reward technological fluency, digital literacy, rapid decision-making, collaborative problem-solving, and communication skills. And I think you can tell where this is going, Competitive gaming environments naturally cultivate many of these skills.
That is true. Now, the ecosystem surrounding competitive gaming also mirrors the structure of many modern industries. Distributed teams, digital communication, data analysis, technical troubleshooting, content production, and cross-border interaction. This is one reason governments and educational institutions nationwide and also worldwide increasingly see esports as more than a hobby.
The industry is also growing, and it's already enormous, so not everyone can become an professional esports athlete, but the gaming industry supports a wide range of secondary careers. Modern esport ecosystems need software developers, game designers, data analysts, broadcast engineers, audio engineers, event organizers, social media managers, stream producers, and cybersecurity professionals. So for governments that are concerned about their future workforce readiness, whether or not they can adapt to the needs of the market in the future or at the present, this makes gaming a real gateway into both STEM and creative economy careers.
Right. I didn't think about, the the back of the house at all until you said all of that. So
yeah, that's right. There's so much like back office and production support. It's like how, the film industry isn't just actors,
yeah.
right? It's the director, it's the producer, it's the grip, it's everything. I mean, this production is more than us, that's for sure.
Yes, and now we're seeing a shift in language from the Thai government. On May 21st, 2026, Deputy Spokesperson for the Prime Minister's Office, Captain Dr. Padarat Thongsalwaikon said, quote, the government does not view esports solely as entertainment, but as a creative industry with enormous economic value that can generate income and career for the youth, end quote.
Yes, Thai policymakers believe that with the right structure and curriculum in place, gaming can help future generations develop 4 core pillars of competitive job skills. Now, the first one is, of course, tech skills. Students develop familiarity with digital ecosystems, hardware systems, streaming technologies, networking infrastructure, and software environments beyond just being consumers of games. Even beyond professional gaming, these skills overlap with broader digital economy sectors. Secondly, analytical thinking. Competitive gaming requires constant real-time interpretation of statistics, map awareness, probability, strategic positioning, and opponent behavior. Players must process information rapidly and adapt under pressure. This directly contrasts with rote memorization-based educational models.
Yeah, and thirdly, we have teamwork. So high-level esports depends heavily on communication. Players must coordinate roles, manage conflict, relay information efficiently, and execute collective strategy under intense time pressure. The social coordination aspect is often underestimated by outsiders unfamiliar with competitive gaming ecosystems. I think I'm still stuck in the 90s, but when you talk about gaming, I'm just thinking of one player on a console.
That's
but
true.
I keep forgetting that esports, you can actually play with anybody and as many players as you want in the world, if the game allows it.
That's true. I mean, it depends on, the parameters of the game. Like sometimes the teams are like 5v5, sometimes it's 3v3, even 1v1. But, the aspect of competitive gaming is like that really stuck with me is teamwork and analytical thinking, because those are two things that I'm not particularly great at. And I think that those are skills that, when I was growing up and I was playing games, I felt like, this is really challenging. This aspect, it really exposes some, weaknesses that you need to work on, you need to develop. And these are things that really transfer, these soft skills are things that really transfer across all industries, in my opinion.
That's right. And finally, we have self-management, which is also a very important thing, if not the most important thing. So a gaming curriculum could help students practice discipline, which is very much needed. Students would be expected to learn emotional regulation. Who would have thought like gaming can help with that?
I know.
Stress management, screen time balance, physical wellness, and healthy routines as well. So this is partly designed to counter fears of gaming addiction by embedding gaming inside broader frameworks of responsibility and self-control. And I like how they're taking account into the physical wellness and the healthy routines as well, because I think people still have an image stuck in their heads like, oh, kids playing in front of a console, that's so unhealthy. But if the school or authorities can kind of help children understand better how to regulate themselves in terms of physical wellness and all that, that's great.
I think so too. I think that if you treat it as something where a kid is doing by themselves in their room with no adult supervision, then they don't really build those skills. And it's kind of like doom scrolling. Like, you don't want your kid to always be on the phone. You want your kid to use their phone around you and not somewhere where you can't help sort of police and regulate it, So I think that gaming doesn't necessarily help with emotional regulation, but the system of a gaming curriculum could. Exposing kids to stressful situations. I've had a lot of game rage, crash outs where I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm throwing the controller away or something like that. But the truth is that you're always going to be exposed to stressful, emotional situations throughout the rest of your life. So using gaming as a vehicle to expose your kid to the kinds of situations that they may encounter throughout the rest of their life, and it's a fairly, safe environment for that to happen. And then for them to practice at a young age emotional regulation is really important. So the policy also aligns with a larger educational critique that increasingly is voiced by Thai policymakers, that the traditional classroom model overly prioritizes memorization at the expense of analytical and technological thinking.
That's true.
So what do you think about this rationale more broadly for, the government supporting esports? I mean, I can see some concerns from parents, but what do you think?
How to call it? Like, I find it quite interesting. I'm definitely not against it, but I'm going to have to see how this all pans out, I guess.
That's so true. I think that it's all about the execution. I think that if these become school-sanctioned internet cafes that don't really have a teacher advisor or an adult advisor in the room, and if, kids are left to their own devices, then you kind of get more of the same, right? But if it is absorbed into the school curriculum, if it is absorbed into like official clubs and they have goals and they have to get better, they can't just play, right? I mean, they have to dedicate themselves to a long-term goal. Maybe it's to compete at a, city level or a national level, then that gives them something to work towards. And that can kind of structure the playtime, So now that we understand the underlying rationale, we'd like to take a look at one of the major partner programs, which is To Be Number One. Now, the To Be Number One Foundation was launched in 2002 amid growing national concern over the spread of yaba, which is methamphetamine tablets that had become deeply embedded in many Thai communities during the late 1990s and the early 2000s. The drug crisis had affected schools, rural provinces, urban labor sectors, and youth populations in particular. And I don't think it's really completely gone away either, right?
It's probably still there, but the government has done a pretty good job, I would say,
I think so too.
Making it less prominent in the country. But government statistics at the time revealed that the scale of the problem, right? Surveys estimated that more than 600,000 young people had become involved with yaba, while drug-related incarceration rates surged nationwide. I remember definitely, I'm going to give my age out a little bit, but back in the late 1990s, yaba was everywhere. There were tons of campaigns like don't take random things from strangers. And methamphetamine has become deeply intertwined with everyday youth culture itself as well.
It was within this environment that Her Royal Highness Princess Ubonrat Ratchakanya established the To Be Number One Foundation as a different kind of anti-drug initiative. Unlike traditional anti-drug campaigns built around fear, punishment, moral lecturing, To Be Number One approached the issue from an entirely different angle. The foundation recognized that young people are not simply vulnerable because they lack discipline. Teenagers are searching for their identity, for a sense of belonging, confidence, emotional support, and recognition from their peers. So if those needs aren't fulfilled through positive communities, they can easily be fulfilled through destructive ones instead, such as drugs, gangs, and toxic peers.
That's really innovative for the time, like 20 years ago.
I think so too, yeah.
But for more than 2 decades, To Be Number One functioned less like a convention anti-drug campaign and more like a nationwide youth culture ecosystem. Its philosophy was encapsulated with a simple slogan, to be number one without relying on drugs. Its methods centered on creating highly social and visible activities that gave students purpose, identity, and community. These activities are designed to develop emotional intelligence, confidence, empathy, teamwork, leadership, and communication skills, all the soft skills that I think everybody should start developing at a young age.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they include leadership camps, peer counseling, volunteer programs, sports events, this is physical sports here, music programs, and youth support centers known as Friends Corners, or in Thai, Sun Phuen Chai.
Yes, a recurring concept throughout the to be number one philosophy is what the project calls psychological immunity or social immunity. It's the idea that drug prevention isn't just about avoiding dangerous substances, but strengthening emotional resilience and self worth so that young people become less vulnerable to destructive behavior in the first place. If you have a great social structure that really keeps you from, falling in with the wrong crowd and being swayed by substance abuse or needing substance abuse in the first place, I honestly think that having a great social network is the greatest sort of social immunity to these kinds of ills in the first place. So it's so important to create a healthy youth ecosystem where teenagers can seek counseling, join activities, build friendships, and participate in skill building programs. And now that program is going digital.
Yeah, I like how they transform with time as well. It's the digital age, might as well go into it. Mm-hmm. Now, Deputy Spokesperson, Captor Dr. Paddarat, announced that the Ministry of Education was preparing to systematically introduce esports into schools nationwide. She explained that, quote, the move represents a new paradigm for Thai education, tangibly linking digital literacy, creativity, and the future economy, end quote. And rather than building a new institution from scratch, the government chose to roll out the initiative through the already existing To Be Number One network.
I think that's so smart to leverage what already exists. It already has the support, it already has the infrastructure, it already has certain mechanisms and relationships with schools. To Be Number One has what few youth programs in Thailand can match, is a nationwide infrastructure that is embedded in schools and communities. The program spent over 2 decades building clubs, peer leadership systems, competitions, mentorship programs, emotional support youth spaces across the country. Now, from the government's perspective, this meant that the system necessary to organize and supervise youth activities already exists. When you have the system, when you have the ecosystem in place, let's just use what we got, right? Rather than building a parallel system from scratch. So the first phase of the eSports rollout, therefore, focuses on integrating gaming directly into the To Be Number One clubs nationwide.
Very smart. But students participating in these programs would not simply play casually. Schools would organize structured activities, train teams, and even select representatives for regional, national, and international competitions. So to the kids, if you think, oh, e-gaming club, I'm just going to go play. Nah, there's a goal, right? You got to play to win something.
It's more like a sports team.
Yeah, it is. Right. In many ways, the structure mirrors the same competitive ladder long used by To Be Number One's dance and talent competitions. The difference is that the arena has shifted from physical stages to digital ones.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we say we draw that, contrast between physical and digital. I mean, the arena is digital, that's for sure, right? Like you can game with anybody on the internet, but it's important to note that, you are showing up in a physical place. You are meeting people physically, So it's not to say that they're going to be entirely online and they're not going to have any real world social skills. I think it's a great way to build both sort of fluency and literacy with the digital ecosystems while being present in real life physical social spaces. So a key part of this policy's logic is that gaming isn't inherently dangerous on its own. What matters is whether the gaming occurs inside or outside systems or structures of guidance. Now, historically, concerns about gaming in Thailand often centered around unsupervised environments such as internet cafes, where students can spend long hours without adult oversight and educational support. I mean, there were some cases of where a kid passes out, from hours of internet gaming, unsupervised, and, they go to the hospital. Maybe they even pass away from that. It can be lethal. Gaming addiction is real, and it's not to say that it's not, but creating an ecosystem where they can be supervised, where they can enjoy it healthily, I think that's the really important thing. So the government's new strategy attempts to move gaming away from those informal settings into schools where it can be connected with mentorship, academic expectations, schedules, institutional accountability. Instead of suppressing youth digital culture, the government is attempting to guide it.
Right, and the initiative is also being developed alongside specialized organizations focused on youth gaming development. One major collaborator is the Collegiate Esports and Youth Development Association, or SEDA, which has been involved in structured youth esports initiatives and educational gaming ecosystems. Together, To Be Number One and SEDA have kickstarted Buff to Build Number One. And these are sandbox environments designed to merge youth development, educational structures, digital literacy, and competitive gaming. Now, at the launch ceremony, Mom Luang Yupadi Siriwan, advisor to the To Be Number One project and Secretary General to the To Be Number One Foundation, stated that the To Be Number One project has no conditions, no barriers, and no generation gap. Every activity is designed to help children grow in all dimensions.
I really like what she said, and I really applaud you for saying To Be Number One 3 times in a row.
Thank you.
And already we're making headway because students from the To Be Number One clubs have competed in the ROV Youth Champion Road to Wildcard. Now, this acts as the first rung in a ladder that connects players to the TEPL 2026 Wildcard and opens a clear path towards the top-tier ROV Pro League 2027. Now, again, at the launch ceremony, Tanon Tanakon Prapha, president of SEDA, had a message for parents urging them to open their minds and move beyond outdated perceptions that gaming is meaningless. He drew comparisons to the entertainment industry. So 30 years ago, children who loved music might have been dismissed as dreamers with no future. But look at today. T-pop and K-pop have become global industries. Esports is no different. Today, we have Thai players earning salaries of 400,000 baht a month, while others work as data analysts for teams in Italy and are paid in euros. Now, Dr. Athiya Panya, Assistant Secretary General of Thailand's Office of the Basic Education Commission, or OBEC, confirmed that the government is ready to support the initiative by first changing the mindset of school administrators and parents, because it's so easy for, like, when you see a kid gaming in class to sort of reflexively be like, hey, don't do that. But it's, now, I mean, obviously they should be gaming in class, but gaming is not a sin across in all sort of dimensions. There's a time and a place, right? So the agency is also exploring systems for academic credit recognition and the establishment of official esports clubs in schools in order to create safe spaces and promote digital literacy among Thai youth.
So Ben, if you had kids, would you allow your kids to sign up for esports at school?
I think that I would have enjoyed it myself. And I think that esports, the structure, the sort of the environment of esports is not altogether that different from sports. And I think I would have loved for my kid to play sports as well. I keep on talking like woulda, coulda, shoulda. But I think that in either hypothetical case, they're not actually all that different. It really depends on what the kid wants. And creating an environment that is supervised with people, with teachers, with, club advisors, I think that makes sense. I think it makes a lot of sense to me. We've made that argument a lot throughout this episode. And I think everything in moderation, I think it's important that kids, the things that bring them joy, they don't just get outlawed entirely. Like, if a kid enjoys a cake or something, you don't just say, well, it's bad for you because of sugar, so you're never going to have a cake. It doesn't make sense to do that with gaming, especially when it can confer so many different soft skills and hard skills too. There are all these soft skills that we talked about, like analytical thinking and emotional self-regulation and teamwork, but all the hard skills of digital literacy. I mean, there are things that you can only gain through a genuine passion for a genuine interest in something. You know, you can't force an art kid to be into math, and you can't force a STEM kid to be into art if they just they don't care about those things. I'm not saying that they shouldn't learn those things, but they should care about those. They should be allowed to pursue what they want to pursue, and then our job as the adults in the room is to channel it towards something constructive, you know, to create a healthy way to interact with that thing, you know. So that's my opinion. My opinion is that it's long overdue. It's long overdue that kids are given the space, the creative space to pursue interests like this. And it's not that different from a kid who's obsessed with playing an instrument, or a kid who's obsessed with making content. And maybe there should be a content club. I think that, you know, learning these things young, it's when their minds are the most malleable and they're the most agile. So I think I'm in favor. I definitely wouldn't, you know, it would depend though. Like, it's all in the execution. That's the number one thing. It's all in the execution, because I can see this going off the rails as well. What about you?
Well, like I mentioned before, I'm also very curious about the execution, but on paper, it looks like a great initiative. One thing to note, though, when we talk about gaming and stuff, we kind of just zero into the gaming and online part of it, but many games, actually, it can translate to different occupations as well.
Yeah.
Very obviously, like if you like, say, games that are like a little bit on the military side, if you choose to later on in your adulthood want to go into military, that kind of helps. And a real use case actually is in the West. I know that some countries, they do prefer doctors who know how to game, because they say that you know, the hand and eye coordination and the preciseness of doctors who can actually perform shooting games really well can do surgeries better than non-gamers.
That's very interesting. I kind of agree, because there's one time when my friend was taking me, you know, drone flying in Bangkok. And this is before we implemented a lot of regulations to control, you know, drones, which are very sensible regulations. But we were flying a drone, and I felt like the controls were second nature, because it just felt like a video game in my hands. And we obviously know that a drone operator, you know, in many both civilian and military cases, are very in demand right now. So, you know, it's hard to ignore the reality that gaming can, you know, impart real hard skills, real technical skills, as well as soft skills.
And now we turn it back to our audience. Would you guys allow your kids to sign up for esports clubs at school?
Let us know in the comment section of NBT World's online channels. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Spotify.
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.
สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีค่ะ